The blizzard had begun hours earlier, but now it was raging with full force, turning the long stretch of highway into a ghostly tunnel of white. Snowflakes lashed against the windshield like handfuls of sharp needles, and the wind howled, with such ferocity that even the tall pine trees lining the road bent under its weight. 73-year-old Ivan Nikolaevich had driven through many storms in his lifetime, but something about this one felt different, heavier, more dangerous, almost alive. He leaned forward, squinting over the steering wheel as the headlights struggled to cut through the swirling snow. The road markings had long vanished beneath the accumulating drifts. His fingers, stiff with age and cold, gripped the wheel tightly. He knew he should have turned back earlier or stopped at a rest area, but he had been determined to return home before nightfall. Now dusk was creeping in and the storm was only getting worse. Just as Ivan considered pulling over, a sudden dark shape flickered at the edge of his vision. At first he dismissed it as a shadow or a broken branch tossed by the wind. But then it appeared again, low to the ground, moving slowly, almost limping. Ivan's heart jolted. Instinctively, he eased his foot off the gas. The truck skidded slightly on the icy road, and he steered it carefully to the shoulder. He lowered the window, and a blast of icy wind slapped his face. "Is someone there?" He called out, though his voice was swallowed instantly by the storm. He switched on the emergency lights and stepped out into the snow. The cold hit him like a punch. His breath turned into a thick cloud instantly. Visibility was barely a few meters, but as he trudged forward, he saw them, two glowing, pleading eyes staring through the haze. A dog. She was thin, her ribcage visible beneath her wet and matted fur. Snowflakes clung to her eyelashes and her entire body shivered uncontrollably. She barked once, a sharp, desperate sound, and rushed back toward a small drift of snow. Ivan followed her and froze. There, half buried in the icy mound, were three tiny puppies. Their fur was wet, their bodies trembling, their eyes squeezed shut. The snow was piling over them, threatening to bury them alive. Ivan felt a surge of horror and compassion at once. "Oh God," he whispered. The mother dog whined, circling the puppies and nudging them helplessly. In that moment, Ivan knew the truth. If he walked away, they would not survive another hour. He knelt down despite the freezing wind and said softly, "Don't worry, girl. I'm here now." Ivan hurried back to his truck, his boots sinking into the snow with each frantic step. The storm had grown stronger, pelting his face with icy flakes that stung like needles. His heart pounded, not from the cold but from fear. The puppies had barely moved. Their tiny bodies were far too cold. Time was running out. Inside the truck, he grabbed an old wool blanket he kept for emergencies. By the time he returned to the dogs, the mother was whining anxiously, pawing at the snow around her babies as if trying to keep them warm with sheer will. Her eyes were full of panic, but when she saw Ivan, something changed. She stepped back just enough for him to reach the puppies. It was trust, pure and fragile. One by one, Ivan scooped the freezing pups into his arms. They were frighteningly light, like fragile bundles of bones and fur. Their tiny noses were ice cold and their breathing shallow. He wrapped them tightly in the wool blanket, holding them close to his chest to share whatever warmth he could. "It's okay, little ones. Hold on," he whispered, though his voice trembled. The mother dog barked softly, pacing in circles. Ivan reached out his free hand and gently stroked her head. "Come, girl. Let's get you all warm." She leaned into his touch for a moment, just a moment, before following him toward the truck, limping slightly. The moment they were inside, the dog jumped into the passenger seat without hesitation. She curled her thin body around the bundle of blanket-covered puppies, warming them with every bit of heat she had left. The sight made Ivan's throat tighten. Her loyalty, her desperation, her love. It was stronger than the storm outside. Ivan started the engine and the truck hummed to life. He turned the heater up full blast. The windows fogged instantly, a tiny oasis of warmth in the frozen world. But the storm did not intend to let them go easily. Visibility was nearly zero. Snow hammered the windshield. The truck slid once, then twice. Ivan gritted his teeth, gripping the wheel tightly. 30 kilometers to the nearest veterinary clinic. It might as well have been 100. Every few minutes he glanced at the mother dog. She was watching him with wide, anxious eyes, breathing fast, her body still shaking from the cold and fear. Yet she never left her puppies. Not for a second. "Stay with me," Ivan murmured. "We'll make it. Just stay with me." For a moment, the dog placed her paw gently on his arm, as if saying she believed him. And so through the furious storm, the old man drove, carrying 4 fragile lives and a hope that refused to die. By the time Ivan reached the small-town veterinary clinic, his hands were trembling not just from the cold, but from the fear that he might already be too late. The building's lights glowed dimly through the swirling snow, a small island of hope in the storm. He parked crookedly, jumped out, and rushed around to the passenger side. The mother dog lifted her head weakly, her breath fogging the air. The puppies, wrapped tightly in the wool blanket, were barely moving. Ivan gathered the tiny bundle in his arms, holding them close to his chest as if shielding fragile flames from the wind. "Hold on, just a little longer," he murmured. He pushed open the clinic door with his shoulder. A welcome wave of warm air hit him. Inside, the reception area was quiet, just a small desk, the faint smell of disinfectant, and a young woman scribbling notes. She looked up startled when she saw the old man standing there with an armful of shivering life. "Please," Ivan cried, breathless. "They're freezing." The woman, Dr. Sophia, sprang to her feet instantly. "Bring them in, quick." She opened the door to the examination room, and Ivan followed her inside. She carefully unwrapped the blanket. Her face tightened as she saw the puppies' limp bodies. "Severe hypothermia," she said under her breath. "I'll need warming pads, glucose solution, everything." She moved fast, her hands a blur. The mother dog stood beside the table, whining softly. She tried to put her nose against one of her pups, but the vet gently guided her aside. "It's okay, sweetheart," Sophia whispered. "I'm helping them." Ivan stepped back, feeling helpless. He watched as Sophia placed the puppies on warm pads, covered them with towels, and inserted tiny tubes to deliver warm fluids. She checked their pulses, frowning with concentration. After several tense minutes, she finally spoke. "There's still a chance. They're very weak, but they're alive." Ivan let out a long breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. His eyes stung, not from the cold this time, but from relief. Sophia then knelt to examine the mother dog. Her paws were cracked and bleeding from walking in ice. Her fur was wet and tangled. Yet her eyes stayed fixed on her puppies, trembling with fear and hope. "You saved them," Sophia said softly, turning to Ivan. "Most people would have kept driving." Ivan wiped his glasses with shaking hands. Anyone with a heart would have stopped. Sophia gave him a small warm smile. "Maybe, but not everyone listens to their heart." As the snowstorm raged inside that tiny clinic, 4 fragile lives clung to hope, thanks to one old man who couldn't turn away. The storm finally began to calm by morning, but inside the small veterinary clinic, the atmosphere remained tense and still. Ivan had spent the night sitting on a wooden chair in the waiting room, his coat wrapped around him like a blanket. He hadn't slept, not even for a minute. Every sound from the examination room made his heart jump. He kept replaying the sight of those tiny, almost lifeless bodies in his mind. At sunrise, the door creaked open and Dr. Sophia stepped out. Her hair was messy, her eyes tired, but she was smiling. "They're stable," she said. "All 3 puppies made it through the night." Ivan exhaled slowly, a wave of relief washing over him, so strong that he had to steady himself against the wall. "Thank God," he whispered. Sophia gestured for him to follow her. Inside the warm room, the puppies were lying in a small heated box, their tiny bellies rising and falling with steady breaths. One of them even let out a soft squeak, stretching its little paws. The mother dog was lying beside the box, her head resting on the table, eyes half closed from exhaustion but filled with love. When she noticed Ivan, she perked up, her tail tapping the table softly. "She's been watching over them all night," Sophia explained. Even when she was exhausted, she refused to leave. Ivan knelt down and gently placed his hand on the mother dog's head. She pushed her nose into his palm, letting out a quiet, grateful whine. Her trust, her relief, her gratitude, all of it was there in her eyes. Sophia folded her arms thoughtfully. "They'll need a foster home at least for a few weeks. Somewhere warm, quiet, and safe." She hesitated before adding, "Do you know anyone who could take them in?" Ivan didn't answer immediately. His house was quiet, yes. And old, yes. But it was also empty. Too empty since his wife passed away 3 years ago. For years he had lived in silence, the ticking clock and the creak of floorboards his only companions. He looked at the mother dog again, at the pups breathing softly in their heated nest. Maybe life was giving him something he didn't know he needed. "I'll take them," he said finally, his voice firm and gentle. "All of them." Sophia's face brightened. Are you sure? It's a lot of responsibility. He nodded. I'm sure. They need a home, and maybe I do too. The mother dog seemed to understand. She rested her paw lightly on Ivan's knee, sealing a quiet promise between them. Weeks passed, and winter slowly loosened its grip on the little village. Snow still covered the roofs, but the harsh storms had quieted. In Ivan's old wooden house, however, a different kind of warmth had taken root, one filled with playful barks, tiny footsteps, and a mother's gentle watchfulness. The puppies had grown stronger with each passing day. What were once small, fragile bundles of fur were now lively little explorers. They tumbled over each other, nipped at Ivan's slippers, chased the hems of his trousers, and barked at their own reflections in the metal kettle by the fireplace. Their energy filled the house like sunshine breaking through clouds. The mother dog, now named Snezha, had transformed as well. Her fur regained its shine, her wounds healed, and her eyes, once filled with fear, now gleamed with trust and affection. She followed Ivan everywhere, acting as though she understood that he had given her and her babies a second chance at life. Ivan, who had grown used to the silence of an empty home, found himself smiling more than he had in years. Every morning he woke up to the soft whines of puppies eager for food and affection. He laughed when they stumbled over each other, trying to reach him first. He talked to them, told them stories, and even found himself humming again while making coffee. The neighbors noticed the change too. Children from the nearby houses often visited, begging to play with the puppies. The yard, once quiet and dull, now rang with giggles and happy barks. The villagers would stop by, just to see the little family that had been rescued from the storm. One afternoon, as the sun melted the tips of the snowdrifts and a warm golden glow filled the sky, Ivan sat on his porch with Snezha lying beside him. The puppies were wrestling in a soft pile near his feet. He reached down, stroking Snezha's head gently. You know, he murmured, I thought I was helping you that night on the highway. But maybe you were the one saving me. Snezha lifted her head and rested it on his lap, closing her eyes with contentment. The old man smiled, feeling a peace he hadn't felt since his wife passed away. It was as if the house, once cold with loneliness, had been brought back to life by 4 beating hearts. What began as a desperate rescue in a deadly storm became a beautiful bond that touched everyone in the village. And for Ivan, it became proof that sometimes the smallest lives can bring the greatest light.